Did you know that the history of painkillers began with a simple plant called the poppy? But what makes this plant so special and at the same time so dangerous? Throughout this video, we will unveil how a beautiful specimen of nature turned into one of the most potent and controversial analgesics in modern medicine. How a German scientist isolated, for the first time, a key component of this plant that would change the history of pain treatment. But do you know what this substance is? We will also explore the advancements that allowed the creation of new medications from this initial discovery. And here comes a question. Why, despite the benefits, can the use of these potent analgesics be so risky? Ultimately, we will understand how prolonged use of these medications can fundamentally alter the functioning of the human brain. What are the real dangers of opioid addiction, and how can it radically transform the lives of those dependent on these medications? Let's get started. Options and history of medications. Fortunately, there are now many pain relief options, but it wasn't always this way. The history of our controversial remedy began thousands of years ago with a medicinal plant. The root of it all, literally, is a plant called the poppy. It looks harmless and has such a pretty flower that you might even use it at home as a decoration, if not for one detail. Opium and its consequences. The poppy hides behind that beauty a sap that, when consumed, creates a strange combination of anesthesia, relaxation, and euphoria. The sap of the poppy was called opium, a substance that, throughout history, has been used as a drug of abuse because of the relaxation and euphoria it provides. But opium also played a medicinal role, used as a treatment for all sorts of health problems, from asthma to severe injuries. Advances in pain medicine. But for those interested only in pain relief, it was quite inconvenient, since it left the person spaced out and euphoric to the point of altering their behavior. This changed in 1805, when a German scientist named Friedrich Sertüner managed to extract from opium one of the substances responsible for its analgesic effect, which combats pain. He named this substance morphine, which remains one of the most potent substances available against very severe pain. Discoveries and subsequent developments. Over time, scientists discovered other natural analgesics, like codeine, also present in opium, but which had a milder effect than that of morphine. It was a huge advancement in pain treatment because it was no longer necessary to use the entire poppy sap as a remedy. It was possible to isolate the main substances to achieve only the analgesic effect. The natural analgesics from opium served as the basis for dozens of other pain medications, collectively called opioids. Applications and risks of opioids. These medications are effective against moderate to severe pain that appears after surgery and due to diseases like advanced cancer. They are the solution for pain that cannot be resolved with common medications like paracetamol. Incredibly, opioids work because they bind perfectly to important receptors in our body. Mechanism of action of opioids. But how is this possible? Could it be fate or perhaps mere chance that the body responds so perfectly to these powerful substances found in nature? If you stub your toe on the corner of a table, the neurons in your toe send signals that reach the brain to generate the sensation you perceive as pain. As unpleasant as it is, you need to feel pain to avoid carelessly bumping into things. But the pain signal cannot last forever. Consequences of prolonged use of opioids. The body has molecules that oversee the neurons to ensure you do not feel pain forever. These regulatory molecules can deactivate pain signals by binding to receptors on the surface of neurons. This is where opioids come in. They have a structure similar to these regulatory molecules and bind to their receptors to block any pain signals. When opioids bind to the receptors, the neurons simply cannot carry the pain signal to the brain as effectively. It's a different and more potent mechanism than the common medications for headaches that I explained in this video here. Dangers of opioid addiction. The problem is that opioids do more than just relieve pain. They also act directly on the brain, which can produce a very dangerous side effect. When a person takes an opioid, it temporarily blocks the brain's ability to control signals of pleasure and well-being. The result of this dysregulation is that the brain releases large amounts of dopamine, which many know as the hormone of pleasure and addiction. Dopamine creates euphoria, right when the person is feeling the analgesic effect of the opioid. They feel as if they are floating. Some people experience a high, Conclusion and warning. But feeling pleasure 100% of the time is not good, just as ceasing to feel pain entirely is also harmful. Control of these sensations helps you differentiate negative, neutral, and positive situations. As the person continues to take the medication daily, the body tries to regain control of the situation. It will decrease the number of receptors available for binding on the surface of the neurons. In practice, part of the opioid the person takes no longer has a place to bind to generate its effects. Now, the dose that the person was taking starts to be insufficient to relieve the pain and no longer produces pleasure. The person needs increasingly higher doses to achieve the same effect as before. At this point, stopping the medication causes intense discomfort because the body has adapted to work with the medication there. This is called physical dependence. It's as if the body needs the medication to function. The person now has two reasons to increase the dose of opioids. They want to end the symptoms of dependence and relieve the pain. Gradually, physical dependence alters areas of the brain linked to impulse control, leading to chemical dependence, which we then call addiction. If the person has access to the medication, they start to overuse the doses without thinking about the consequences. And I'm talking here, folks, about a disease. The person does not decide to take more medication because they are irresponsible. They simply cannot avoid it. And the worst part is that not everyone is aware of this risk that medications like Codex, Tylex, Duragesic, and others common ones can cause. Opioid addiction led to about 68,000 American deaths in 2020. And I mention them because that's where the most robust studies are. The person starts to take it because of a severe fracture, a migraine, or the unbearable pain of a kidney stone. And then when the treatment ends, the person continues to take the medication on their own and increases the dose, not anymore to treat pain, but in search of relaxation and pleasure. People undergoing treatment for chronic pain, or over a long period, as in the case of cancer, also need to be careful with this. Very high doses of opioids affect various functions of the body. In the case of people who abuse very high doses occasionally, this is also a problem. The opioid becomes a real poison and causes the famous overdose, which leads to problems like seizures and coma. If the person is not attended to in time, the case evolves to a cardiopulmonary arrest and even death. Today, the main culprit in the United States is an opioid called fentanyl. This is the name of the active ingredient, but the medications may be called Duragesic, Fentanist, or another name. Fentanyl is up to 100 times more potent than morphine and is generally indicated for people with cancer who suffer from debilitating pain. But it has conquered the illegal market. People already dependent on opioids, and even those who have never had a medical indication to take opioids, can buy without a prescription. A study showed that in 2015, 3% of the population had taken opioids without medical recommendation. That's 3 times more than those who declared use of crack, and 10 times more than those who declared use of cocaine. This is yet another warning sign. In the United States, following the increase in opioid sales, there was also an increase in their illegal use. When regulatory agencies decided to take action, many people were already addicted and dying from overdoses. Opioids are essential for improving the quality of life of those suffering from the intense or constant pain of shingles or a spinal problem. They also play a part in procedures called palliative care, used when a person has a serious disease in which the pain is debilitating, such as certain advanced cancers and lupus. But rest assured, as long as they are used properly, following the doctor's strict recommendations about the dose, the start date, and the end date of treatment, you won't become addicted or have an opioid overdose. But don't take it on your own, and don't share the medication with the neighbor just because they show up with lower back pain, because I know you love to share medical prescriptions. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I wish you great health, wealth, and happiness. See you in the next video.